Hi, I'm Diana, I'm 32, and for most of my life my sister Tara had one special talent. She could take anything that was mine. Clothes, attention, even the men I loved. I used to think it was just bad luck. Until the night I walked into my own living room and saw her kissing the man I thought I'd marry. That moment changed everything. Tell me, where are you watching from? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about family drama, betrayal, and emotional courage. I used to joke that my sister Tara was born under a brighter light than me. Same parents, same home, but somehow everything always landed perfectly in her lap. If there was a room full of people, eyes found her first. She didn't even have to try. And for most of my life I told myself it didn't bother me. I told myself I was the calm one, the kind one. But that was before I learned what it felt like to lose love after love to the same person. The first time it happened I was 18. I'd been dating a boy named Luke. A quiet type who liked sketching and old records. We weren't serious, but he was the first person who ever made me feel seen. Tara was home from college for the summer, and my parents had this small cookout in the backyard. It was one of those perfect evenings, warm air, country music, laughter bouncing off the fences. I remember stepping inside to grab more lemonade, and when I came back out, there they were. Tara laughing at something Luke said, leaning just a bit too close, brushing her hair from her shoulder the way she always did when she wanted attention. I told myself it was nothing. Sisters tease, right? Except 2 weeks later Luke stopped calling. Then I saw him at the county fair, with her. I didn't cry right away. I just went quiet. That's my habit when I'm hurt. I folded in, tell myself I'm overreacting. Tara apologized, said she didn't mean for it to happen. That feelings are messy. My mom told me to forgive her. That men come and go, but sisters are forever. So I swallowed it. It happened again when I was 22. That one cut deeper. His name was Ryan, a coworker from the coffee shop where I worked part-time. He was funny, smart, and patient with me. He used to say I had an old soul, and for the first time in a long time I felt comfortable just being myself. We'd been together 6 months when Tara came to visit. She'd just gone through a breakup and was staying with me for a bit. Within a week, Ryan couldn't stop talking about how magnetic she was. Within 2 weeks I caught him texting her. And within a month she moved out, straight into his apartment. That time I did cry. A lot. But when I told my mom, she said, "You can't blame Tara for following her heart." My dad stayed out of it as always. And I started to realize, in my family Tara didn't do wrong. She just was. I tried to move on, but something changed in me. It wasn't just jealousy, it was humiliation. People in town noticed. Friends stopped calling because they didn't know what to say. Even at work people whispered. I started avoiding parties, staying late at shifts just to keep busy. Years passed and Tara's pattern never stopped. Every time I started dating someone she'd find a way to get close. Sometimes it was harmless flirting, other times more. I became cautious, even paranoid. I stopped introducing her to anyone I cared about. But somehow she always found out. Social media made it worse, one tagged photo and she'd send a message. "He's cute, D. Don't let him go." I used to laugh at those texts. Now I wish I'd taken them as warnings. By the time I was 30, I'd almost given up on dating altogether. I focused on my job at the insurance office, my small apartment, my routines. I had peace or something like it. But even peace can feel empty when it's built on fear of being hurt again. Then came Tom. He was kind, really kind. Not flashy or overly confident, just steady. We met through mutual friends at a 4th of July barbecue. I almost didn't go. But something about the smell of burgers and fireworks made me miss the world I'd shut out. Tom and I talked for hours about silly things, movies, pets, and bad coffee. He walked me to my car that night, asked for my number in this shy, almost awkward way. I remember thinking, maybe this one's different. For months things were good. Simple. Honest. I told Tara about him eventually, just in passing. She teased me, said, "Finally, someone normal for you." I didn't invite her to meet him. I told myself I was protecting what I had. But secrets don't stay hidden forever. Not in my family. One night, Tom and I were having dinner at my place when my phone buzzed. It was Tara. She was in the area and wanted to stop by. My chest tightened, but I didn't want to seem paranoid. I said okay. She showed up looking like she always did, perfect. Tight jeans, soft curls, that effortless smile. Tom stood to shake her hand, and I swear I saw the shift happen right there. The way his expression softened, the curiosity in his voice when he said, "You're Diana's sister?" My stomach turned, but I kept smiling. They talked most of the evening. Nothing big, just casual jokes, small talk, but I could feel it. That invisible pull Tara had. I knew it too well. After she left, Tom kissed me goodnight, but something in his eyes was different. Distant. 2 weeks later, he needed space. Another week after that, Tara posted a photo on Instagram. Her and Tom at the same beach he and I had gone to for our first trip together. Same spot. Same pier. That night I didn't just cry. I broke. I screamed into my pillow until my throat hurt, because I couldn't scream at her. Not really. Everyone would just say, "She didn't mean to." That phrase haunted me. She didn't mean to. Like it excused everything. Like I was supposed to be endlessly forgiving because we shared blood. But forgiveness has limits. And I had reached mine. After Tom, I didn't date for almost 2 years. I went to work, came home, ate dinner alone, and tried to convince myself I didn't care anymore. Tara, meanwhile, got engaged twice and called off both weddings. She said she just hadn't found the right match. Sometimes I wondered if she'd ever feel what I felt. The ache of being replaced, the shame of being compared, the loneliness that comes when no one believes your pain. I didn't know it then, but the answer was yes. She would. And when that day came, it wouldn't be by accident. I didn't wake up that morning planning to ruin anyone's life. Honestly, I woke up tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of pretending I didn't care. Tired of hearing Tara's name in conversations that should have been about me. The ache had dulled over time, but it never really left. It was like an old bruise, one you stop touching, but it's still there. That Monday at work started like any other. The coffee tasted burnt, the copy machine jammed, and my boss Linda had that tone again, the one that made everything sound urgent even when it wasn't. But then, something small happened that I didn't realize would change everything. I met Ethan. He was new to the office, tall, dark hair, maybe mid-30s, with that quiet confidence people notice without trying. He'd been hired in the claims department just 2 cubicles away from mine. I first noticed his voice, calm, deep, the kind of voice that made even boring meetings sound interesting. When he looked at you, it was like he really saw you, and after years of feeling unseen, that did something to me. At lunch, he sat across from me in the break room. "You're Dianna, right?" he asked, smiling just enough to seem warm but not forward. I nodded, surprised he remembered my name. We talked, mostly about small things like how awful the parking lot was, how the vending machine never worked. Normal stuff. But there was something about his eyes, this mix of warmth and something else, something heavy. By the end of the week, we'd fallen into a rhythm. Coffee breaks turned into lunch breaks, and lunch breaks turned into long conversations about everything: music, movies, family. When he laughed, it wasn't loud, but it felt real. And when he listened, it was like he understood things you weren't even saying. I remember the first time I mentioned Tara. I hadn't planned to. We were talking about siblings, and I said something like, "My sister's the social butterfly. I'm more of the background kind." He raised an eyebrow. "Background kind? What does that mean?" I shrugged, smiling in that fake, dismissive way I perfected over the years. "She's just the kind of person who takes up space. People love her instantly. Always have." He leaned back, thinking, "And that bothers you?" The question caught me off guard. Most people never asked. They just assumed I was the quiet one, the stable one. "It used to," I admitted. "Now I just try not to compete." Ethan smiled a little, but there was something sharp behind it. Sometimes the people who take too much from others don't realize what they're doing until someone shows them. I didn't think much of it then, but those words stuck with me. Over the next few weeks, Ethan became part of my everyday life. We'd share rides to work when it rained, exchange memes over text, sometimes grab dinner after late shifts. He was charming in that easy, effortless way. Not flashy like the men Tara usually chased, but grounded. Still, there were moments when he'd say something that made me pause. Once, when I joked about people who play mind games in relationships, he said quietly, "I don't play games anymore. I make sure people know what it feels like." He laughed right after, brushing it off like humor, but the look in his eyes stayed with me. One Friday afternoon, I invited him over for dinner. Nothing fancy: spaghetti, salad, a glass of cheap wine. It felt comfortable, normal. We talked for hours about everything. Our jobs, small-town life, how people pretend to have it all together. It felt nice, like breathing after holding it in too long. Then, somewhere between the third glass of wine and the playlist humming in the background, Tara's name slipped out again. He smiled. I still haven't met this sister of yours. I laughed softly. You don't need to. She's a handful. He leaned forward, curious. Handful how? And I told him. Maybe it was the wine, maybe it was the trust one thought I'd found, but I told him everything. How she'd dated my boyfriends. How she'd never apologized, not really. How everyone always took her side. I tried to make it sound like a funny story, but halfway through my voice cracked. Ethan didn't laugh. He just looked at me with this strange intensity. That's cruel, he said simply. I've known people like that. They think the world owes them attention. You should introduce me sometime. It was a joke, or at least it sounded like one. But something about the way he said it sent a small chill down my spine. That night after he left, I couldn't sleep. His words replayed in my head. They think the world owes them attention. For years, I tried to forget what Tara did. Tried to take the high road, to tell myself I was better than her. But sitting there in the dark, I realized something uncomfortable. I didn't want to be better. I wanted balance. I wanted her to finally understand. The thought started as a whisper. What if she met someone who didn't fall for her charm? Someone who could see through it? Someone who might even make her feel small for once? I didn't plan anything right away. But the idea rooted itself quietly, like a seed waiting for sunlight. Over the next week, I watched Ethan more closely. He was kind, but there was an edge under the surface, little signs that not everything about him was easygoing. The way he'd get tense when someone disagreed with him, or how he'd change the topic if I asked too many personal questions. Still, he fascinated me. Maybe it was because I saw something in him that mirrored the darker parts of myself, the ones I usually hid. One afternoon we were both working late. The office was quiet, just the hum of computers and the occasional phone ring. Ethan leaned over the partition between our desks. You ever get tired of being the nice one? He asked out of nowhere. I froze for a second, then nodded slowly. All the time. He smiled slightly. You shouldn't be. Nice people get trampled. That night, the whisper in my mind became louder. The next day Tara called. She was bored, lonely. Between boyfriends. Her tone was light, teasing. You sound happier lately. Someone new at work. I almost said no. But then something in me shifted. Yeah, I said. Actually, there is. Her voice perked up instantly. Oh? Tell me everything. I told her about Ethan, but in a way that I knew would hook her. I mentioned his job, his confidence, his quiet strength. I knew exactly which traits would catch her interest. By the time I hung up, my hands were shaking. It wasn't fear, it was adrenaline. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control of the story. That night I sat on my couch, the TV flickering in the background, thinking about what I'd just done. The guilt tried to crawl in, but it didn't last. A strange calm settled instead. I told myself this wasn't revenge, it was justice. A lesson Tara had spent her whole life taking. Maybe it was time she lost something too. Over the next few days, I began laying the groundwork. Subtle comments to Ethan about how Tara always got her way. Little hints about how charming she could be. He listened with that same half-smile, never saying much. But I could tell he was curious. One afternoon he asked, if she's so bad, why do you still talk to her? I hesitated. Because she's my sister, I said softly. And no one else will ever understand what it feels like. He nodded, eyes thoughtful. Maybe she should understand. It was the closest thing to a plan we ever made. I told Tara I'd host dinner that weekend. Invited her over to finally meet my coworker friend. She sounded delighted. It's about time you introduced me to someone. When I hung up, I sat in silence, heart pounding. What was I doing? Setting her up? Setting myself up? I didn't know. All I knew was that something inside me had shifted, and there was no going back. That Friday, as I walked through the office halls, Ethan caught my gaze. So, I'm meeting your sister? I nodded. If you want to. He smiled slowly. I do. His tone was calm, but his eyes. There was something there I couldn't quite name. Curiosity, maybe. Or something darker. That evening I stood in front of my mirror, brushing my hair. rehearsing polite conversation in my head. The plan, if you could call it that, was simple: introduce them, see what happens. Let life play out the way it always did, only this time I'd be watching from the outside. As I set the dinner table, I thought about every moment that had led me here. Every heartbreak, every apology that wasn't one. Every time I'd smiled through humiliation. This wasn't just about Tara anymore. It was about me finally reclaiming a piece of power she'd taken without asking. When the doorbell rang, I froze for a second. My heart raced. Not from fear but anticipation. I opened the door. Tara stood there, radiant as ever, holding a bottle of wine. "You look great, Dee," she said brightly. Behind her, Ethan appeared, carrying a small bouquet of flowers. He handed them to me with that calm smile. "Thought these might brighten your place." I thanked him, my voice steady though my mind spun. As the three of us sat down to dinner, laughter filled the room. It looked like any other night. 3 people sharing food, stories, smiles. But underneath it all, something darker pulsed quietly. Tara's laughter was light, careless. Ethan's eyes, on the other hand, lingered too long, as if measuring her. And me? I just sat there, smiling at the two of them, knowing a door had opened that none of us would be able to close. The idea that changed everything wasn't revenge, it was curiosity. And curiosity, I was about to learn, can be far more dangerous than hate. The air in my apartment that night felt too still, like it was holding its breath along with me. Tara's laughter floated from the kitchen, blending with the clinking of dishes as Ethan poured wine into 3 glasses. It should have been an ordinary dinner, 2 siblings and a coworker. But the way Tara's voice rose and fell, bright and effortless, told me this wasn't going to be ordinary. Not tonight. I'd imagined this scene so many times. I thought I'd feel nervous or maybe vindicated. Instead, I just felt alert. Every glance, every tone, every shift in expression. I noticed it all. Tara's hand brushed Ethan's arm once, casually. He smiled politely but didn't linger. Her eyes flicked toward me for half a second, as if checking my reaction. I only smiled back and took another sip of wine. "So, Ethan," she began, leaning forward with that signature sparkle in her eyes. "Dee says you're the reason she's finally stopped complaining about work." Ethan laughed softly, looking at me. "I think your sister just needed someone to appreciate her sarcasm. Most people don't catch it." "Trust me," Tara said, smirking. "I've lived with her sarcasm for 20 years. It's a skill." I forced a laugh, but my heart was thudding unevenly. This dance was familiar. The teasing, the charm, the way Tara pulled people into her orbit without even trying. It had worked every time before. But Ethan wasn't like the others. There was something deliberate about him, a quiet calculation beneath the charm. After dinner, we moved to the living room. The lights were dim, the soft glow from a single lamp making everything feel strangely intimate. Tara curled up on the couch beside Ethan, and I took the chair opposite them. "So, Ethan," she said, twirling her wine glass, "what's your story? Married? Divorced? Secret millionaire?" He chuckled. "None of the above. Just a guy who likes his peace and a good cup of coffee." She tilted her head. "That's vague." I like that. Their eyes met for a moment too long, and something in me clenched. It wasn't jealousy, not exactly. It was déjà vu, the beginning of a pattern I knew too well. I tried to steer the conversation. "Tara, didn't you say you were thinking of starting a podcast? You should tell Ethan about it." She gave me a playful look. "Oh, please. It's just an idea." Ethan smiled. "You should. People with confidence sound good behind a mic. You definitely have that energy." Tara laughed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Careful, Ethan. Flattery gets you everywhere with me." He raised his glass slightly. "Good to know." My stomach tightened. I watched them like someone watching a slow-motion car crash. You can see it coming, but you can't look away. When Tara finally left that night, she hugged me tight at the door. "He's cute, Dee. You have good taste." Her tone was teasing, but I heard the spark beneath it. The one that always lit up right before she took something that wasn't hers. After the door shut, Ethan lingered in the doorway. "She's interesting," he said simply. I turned toward him, searching his face. "Interesting how?" He smiled faintly. "She likes control." "So do I." And then he left. That night I lay awake replaying everything, the glances, the tone, his words. I wanted to show Tara what it felt like to lose control. Maybe this was the start. But there was something unnerving about the way Ethan had said it. Like he wasn't talking about Tara at all. The next few days I tried to focus on work, but the energy between the three of us had shifted. Tara texted me constantly, asking about Ethan, dropping little comments that made my stomach twist. He's mysterious. He doesn't seem like your usual type. Does he ever smile, or is that his serious guy thing? She was intrigued, which meant she was hooked. At work, Ethan didn't mention her, not at first. But one afternoon as we were leaving, he said casually, "Your sister texted me. She got my number from the group chat." My breath caught. "Oh, what did she say?" He looked at me for a long moment, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Just said it was nice meeting me. Asked if I wanted to grab coffee sometime." "And, do you?" He shrugged. "I might." Something inside me tensed. This was it, the point of no return. I could stop it, tell him not to go, warn him. But that would ruin everything, wouldn't it? "Sure," I said softly. "You should." That night I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I told myself it didn't matter. This was part of the plan. Tara would meet someone who didn't fall for her, or if he did, it would be temporary. She'd finally feel what I'd felt for years. But when she called 2 days later, breathless with excitement, my stomach sank. We went for coffee, and oh my God, he's different. He's not like anyone I've met. I swallowed hard. Different how? He listens. Really listens. And he's not intimidated by me. I like that. I forced a laugh. "You like anyone who challenges you." She giggled. "Maybe. But this one feels interesting." After the call, I sat in silence, the weight of what I'd started pressing down on me. I'd wanted a perfect introduction, a setup that would finally turn the tables. But it was starting to feel like I just opened a door to something darker. Over the next few weeks, I saw the change. Tara became more distant, secretive. Our texts grew shorter. When we did talk, Ethan's name slipped into every conversation like a quiet undertone. "Ethan says I should be more patient. Ethan thinks people underestimate me. Ethan says you're stronger than you think, D." That last one stuck with me. What was he telling her about me? One night I decided to call Ethan. It had been almost 2 weeks since we'd really talked outside work. When he answered, his voice was calm as always. "Hey," I said. "You've been quiet lately." "Just busy," he replied. "And Tara's been keeping me entertained." My throat tightened. "You two are seeing each other a lot?" "Yeah," he said simply. "She's fascinating. But also, exhausting." I hesitated. "You don't sound happy." He laughed softly. "I don't get happy or unhappy, Dianna. I observe." Something cold ran down my spine. The next time I saw Tara, it was at my apartment again. She was radiant, glowing like someone who'd found a new obsession. "Ethan took me to this little rooftop place last night," she said, smiling dreamily. "He's intense, but in a good way. Like, he sees me." I studied her face. That same look I'd worn so many times before when I'd fallen for someone who never really belonged to me. "Just be careful," I said quietly. She frowned. "Why would you say that?" "No reason. Just, he's different." She rolled her eyes. "You're being dramatic. He's amazing." And that was that. Weeks passed, and I watched from the sidelines as whatever was happening between them deepened. Tara stopped showing up unannounced, stopped gossiping about her friends, stopped calling me late at night. Instead, she talked about Ethan. His mind, his charm, the way he made her feel small in the best way. But there was something else too. A flicker of unease in her voice she tried to hide. "He doesn't like when I cancel plans," she said once. "He gets quiet when I don't text back right away. Sometimes he looks at me like he's trying to figure me out." Each time I'd ask, "Does that bother you?" And she'd always laugh it off. "No, it's kind of thrilling." But it was starting to sound less like thrill and more like tension. One evening after work, Ethan stopped by my desk. "Dinner this Friday?" he asked casually. I blinked. "With Tara?" "With both of you." My pulse quickened. "Why?" He smiled faintly. "Just thought it'd be good for balance." When Friday came, I almost canceled. Something about the idea felt wrong, but curiosity won again. We met at a cozy restaurant downtown. Low lights, quiet jazz, polished glasses catching the golden glow. Tara arrived first, looking stunning in a red dress. Ethan walked in minutes later, his usual calm expression unreadable. Dinner was tense. Tara dominated the conversation as usual, but there was an undercurrent, subtle, sharp. Ethan would say things that made her pause, like he was testing her. "You like control, don't you?" he said once mid-conversation. Tara laughed. "Doesn't everyone?" He tilted his head slightly. "Some people mistake control for power. They're not the same." She smiled, but her eyes flickered, just for a moment. After dinner, as we were leaving, Ethan pulled me aside. "You wanted her to meet someone who could challenge her, right?" My breath caught. "What are you talking about?" He smiled slowly. "You said she always takes what she wants. I'm just showing her that not everyone gives in." My chest tightened. "Ethan, that's not." He leaned closer, voice low. "Relax, Dianna. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm just teaching lessons." His words lingered long after he walked away. That night I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Not just between Ethan and Tara, but between Ethan and me. The line between justice and cruelty had blurred, and I wasn't sure which side I was standing on anymore. The perfect introduction had worked, but what followed was starting to feel far from perfect. And as I stared at my reflection that night, the flicker of guilt in my eyes, I realized something I couldn't admit out loud. Maybe Tara wasn't the only one being taught a lesson. I didn't realize how quiet my apartment had become until one night, sitting alone at the kitchen table, I heard the clock ticking louder than usual. It was the same spot where Ethan and Tara had first met. That dinner felt like a lifetime ago now, before the shift, before the tension started to leak through every conversation, every glance. First it was small things. Missed calls. Delayed texts. Tara's once playful voice starting to sound unsure whenever she talked about Ethan. She'd still try to sound light, but her tone carried a strain I couldn't ignore. "He's just hard to read," she said one morning over the phone. "Sometimes he's sweet and calm, and then out of nowhere he gets quiet. Like too quiet. I ask what's wrong and he says, nothing. But I can tell something's there." I tried to sound casual. "Maybe he's just private." "Maybe," she said softly. "But it feels like I'm walking on eggshells sometimes. Like I could say one wrong thing and ruin the whole night." Her voice wavered a little, and for the first time I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt something else. Guilt maybe. A small heavy ache in my chest. I wanted to tell her to stop seeing him, to run before she got pulled too deep. But that would mean admitting what I'd done, and I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. So I said, "You're probably just overthinking it, Tara. Give it time." But time didn't make things better. 2 weeks later, she showed up at my place unannounced. Her hair was messy, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. I opened the door, startled. "Tara." She pushed past me, pacing the living room. He disappeared last night. No call, no text, nothing. I waited for hours. I tried to stay calm. Maybe something came up? She turned on me, eyes wide. "He does this. He shuts down. Then when I ask about it, he gets defensive. Like I'm the problem." I stayed quiet. She sank onto the couch, running her fingers through her hair. "I don't get it, Dee. I thought we had something real." The irony cut deep. I'd wanted her to feel what it was like to lose control, but now that she did, it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like punishment. I sat beside her. "You deserve someone who treats you better." She looked up, tears welling in her eyes. "But he's not cruel. He just changes. Like he's someone else sometimes." Her words echoed in my mind for days. Later that week, Ethan stopped by my desk at work. His usual calmness seemed darker, colder. "She's emotional," he said casually, as if discussing the weather. "It's exhausting." I froze. "She's upset because you disappear without saying anything." He smiled faintly. "People need to learn that silence isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's reflection." The way he said it made me uneasy. "Ethan, she's not like you. She doesn't understand that kind of distance." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Maybe she should." Then he walked away, leaving me staring at my computer screen, my hands trembling slightly. That night I called Tara. She sounded off, her voice thin, tired. "Are you okay?" I asked. There was a pause. He came by. We talked. It was fine. He said I overreact too much. I hesitated. "Do you believe that?" "I don't know." She exhaled shakily. "He's so convincing. One minute I feel like I'm losing him, and the next he makes me feel like I'm the only person in the world." I could hear the confusion in her tone. That mix of fear and longing that comes when love turns uncertain. "You sound exhausted," I said gently. "Maybe take a break from seeing him." "I tried," she whispered. "But he doesn't like that." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" She laughed nervously. "He just gets upset. He says space is what ruins things. That if I pull away, it'll prove I was never serious." Something twisted in me. I wanted to tell her everything, that I'd introduced them out of anger, that I'd wanted to teach her a lesson. But shame held me back. Instead I said softly, "You need to do what feels right for you." I don't even know what that is anymore. The next few weeks were a blur. Tara became distant, like she was fading from her own life. Her texts grew shorter, her voice duller. When I asked about Ethan, she brushed it off. "We're fine," she'd say too quickly. Then one night she called me crying. "Dee, I can't do this anymore. He gets so angry over nothing. Tonight he said I was making him look bad in front of his friends. I didn't even do anything." I gripped the phone tighter. "Did he yell at you?" "Worse. He just stared at me. For minutes. Didn't say a word. It was like he was disappointed. I'd almost prefer yelling." My throat went dry. "Tara, you need to get out of this. Now." "I can't," she said, her voice cracking. "He keeps apologizing afterward. He says he's just scared of losing me. I don't know what to believe anymore." After that call I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, guilt pressing heavy on my chest. This wasn't justice, it was cruelty. And I had opened the door for it. The next morning I decided to confront Ethan. I waited until lunch when most people were out of the office. He was at his desk typing something, his face calm as always. "We need to talk," I said, my voice low. He looked up, one eyebrow raised. "About what?" "Tara." He leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "What about her?" "She's falling apart, Ethan. You're playing with her emotions and it's not right." He smirked slightly. "I'm not playing. She just can't handle honesty." "That's not honesty, that's manipulation," I snapped. His eyes darkened but his voice stayed calm. "Funny. You introduced us. You wanted her to learn a lesson, didn't you? Seems like she's learning." I froze. "You knew." He stood up, stepping closer. "I'm not stupid, Dianna. The way you pushed her toward me, the way you watched that first night. It wasn't hard to figure out." My heart pounded in my chest. "What are you doing to her?" He smiled faintly. "Nothing she didn't do to others. Maybe it's time someone held up a mirror." I felt sick. "You're not teaching her. You're breaking her." He tilted his head. "Sometimes that's the same thing." I left the office shaking. For days I couldn't think straight. Every time my phone buzzed, I feared it was Tara with worse news. And then one evening she showed up again. Mascara smudged, eyes red, hands trembling. "He's gone," she whispered. Just like that. No message, no goodbye. I went by his place and it's empty. He moved out. I stood there speechless. "He what?" She nodded, her lip quivering. "He told me once he doesn't do attachments." I didn't believe him, but I guess I should have. I guided her to the couch, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. She didn't stop crying for hours. And I sat there feeling every bit of the pain I'd wished on her, except now it didn't feel like justice. It felt like loss. When she finally fell asleep, I sat in the quiet again. That same heavy silence from before. But now it wasn't peaceful. It was suffocating. I stared at her sleeping form and whispered to no one. "I never meant for this." Over the next few days she tried to piece herself back together. She deleted his number, blocked him on social media, tried to laugh again. But the light in her eyes, that spark she'd always had, was dimmer. One afternoon she said softly, "You were right about him, Dee. I should have listened." I forced a smile. "It's okay. You'll be okay." But deep down I wasn't sure either of us would be. Because now, every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's calm smile, his unblinking stare, and heard his words echoing in my mind. You wanted her to learn a lesson. And I couldn't escape the truth. The lesson had been learned, but not by her alone. That night, as rain drummed against my window, I stood in the dim light of the kitchen, the same spot where everything began, and realized something had quietly broken between us. Not just the bond between sisters, but the part of myself that believed revenge could ever bring peace. What I'd started out of anger had spiraled into something I couldn't control. And now all I could do was watch it all fall apart. When I saw everything unravel before my eyes, I thought I'd finally feel peace. I thought I'd stand tall, proud of what I'd done, maybe even laugh at the poetic justice of it all. But standing there, staring at the pieces of what used to be my sister's perfect life, I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty. The silence in my apartment that night was deafening. My phone buzzed again and again. People gossiping, sharing updates, screenshots, bits of information that made my stomach twist. Her name was everywhere. The man she thought was her perfect match, the man I'd introduced her to, had taken everything she valued and vanished. It was the kind of story she used to gloat about being too smart to fall for. But now she was the headline. I poured myself a glass of water and sat on the couch, the dim city lights flickering through the window. My hands were trembling, not from guilt, at least that's what I told myself, but from disbelief. After years of watching her destroy my relationships, steal my happiness, and walk away like nothing happened, I had finally taken something back. Only it didn't feel like taking back power. It felt like losing a part of myself I didn't even realize was still alive. Are you happy now? My reflection in the glass seemed to ask. I wasn't sure how to answer. The next morning I woke to dozens of missed calls. My mom, my aunt, even my sister. I stared at her name on my screen for what felt like forever. My heart raced. I didn't know what I'd say if I answered. Would she scream, beg, curse me, or worse, pretend she didn't know what had really happened? When I finally picked up, all I heard was silence. Then a faint, shaky breath. Dianna, she whispered, her voice raw. I need you. For a moment I forgot everything, the revenge, the years of anger, the betrayal. I heard only the voice of the girl I grew up with, the sister who used to braid my hair, share secrets under blankets, and sneak cookies from the kitchen at midnight. What happened? I asked softly, my voice barely a whisper. He took everything, she said. My savings, my car, he even, her voice cracked. He posted things about me. Private things. I closed my eyes, guilt washing over me like cold water. The plan wasn't supposed to go this far. He was supposed to teach her a lesson, not destroy her life. Later that day, I met her at a cafe near her apartment. She looked like a shadow of herself, pale eyes swollen, hair unkempt. For once, she wasn't the center of attention. She was invisible. When she saw me, she broke down crying. People stared. I didn't care. I hugged her, my arms stiff at first, then slowly tightening as her body shook against mine. I don't know why this keeps happening to me, she sobbed. Every guy I trust ends up hurting me. The irony hit me like a knife. Because the man who'd hurt her this time had been my idea. I told myself it was justice. I told myself she deserved it after years of toying with my heart, with my life. But sitting there, holding her, I realized that revenge doesn't stop the pain. It multiplies it. And somehow I was now part of her suffering. Days passed. She stayed at my place because she was too embarrassed to face anyone. I let her sleep in my bed while I took the couch. She barely ate. Sometimes she'd stare out the window for hours, eyes hollow. I'd try to distract her. Make coffee, watch old movies, talk about anything else, but nothing worked. One night around midnight she finally spoke. Do you ever feel like karma just keeps coming for you? She asked quietly. My throat tightened. What do you mean? She turned to me, tears brimming. I think I ruined too many people's lives. Maybe this is what I deserve. Her words cut deeper than anything she'd ever done to me. Because for the first time she wasn't being dramatic or manipulative. She was sincere. Broken. And I realized something terrifying she already knew. A few days later she confronted me. I know he wasn't some random guy, she said, voice trembling. I know you introduced us for a reason. I froze. Lena, listen. No, you listen. she snapped, her voice rising. I get it. I hurt you. I took things that weren't mine. I ruined your relationships and I thought it was just fun, some stupid game. But you planned this. Her voice cracked. You set me up to be destroyed? I couldn't look at her. I just wanted you to feel what I felt, I whispered. She let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. Well, congratulations. You did. She grabbed her bag and walked out. The door slammed behind her. That sound stayed in my head for days. Weeks passed. She didn't return my calls. Mom stopped talking to me after Lena told her everything. The guy I'd used, he vanished after the chaos, deleting every trace of himself online. It was like watching the fire I started burn out of control. At work I couldn't focus. At night I couldn't sleep. The guilt ate away at me until I finally decided to find her. She had moved to a small town upstate, working at a diner trying to rebuild her life. I went there one afternoon, unsure if she'd even want to see me. When she spotted me, her expression didn't change. She just wiped her hands on her apron and walked over. What do you want, Dianna? She asked, her tone calm but distant. I came to say sorry, I said, my voice breaking. I never wanted to destroy you. I just wanted you to understand. She looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. And now that I do you feel better? I shook my head. No. Her eyes softened. For the first time in a long time, there was no anger between us, just exhaustion. You know, she said quietly, we could have talked. You didn't have to do this. I know, I whispered. But you wouldn't have listened. Maybe not, she admitted. But now I don't think either of us won. We sat there in silence for a while. The sun streamed through the window, casting long shadows across the table. That was the thing about revenge. It didn't erase the past. It just added new scars on top of old ones. Before I left, she said something that stuck with me. Dianna, I don't hate you. But I can't love you right now either. I nodded. It was fair. Because I didn't love myself either. Months later I started therapy. It wasn't just about what I'd done. It was about what I'd carried all those years. The jealousy, the resentment, the need to be seen. I realized that revenge wasn't about justice. It was about trying to heal a wound that talking, forgiving, or time never had. And all it did was make it deeper. One day I got a letter from Lena. No apology, no accusations. Just a few words written neatly across the page. I'm doing better. I hope you are too. I smiled faintly, tears blurring the ink. Maybe this was what closure looked like, not forgiveness but understanding. I never heard from the man again. Maybe karma found him too. As for me, I learned the hardest truth of all. Revenge doesn't give you your life back. It just takes a little more of your heart with it. So now when I tell my story, I don't call it revenge. I call it a reminder. Because sometimes getting even costs more than being hurt ever did. And what revenge really took was me.